Merry Christmas!
I like this coffee cake because it's really moist. It's get rid of some of these cans. I like things that are just a little bit different. And I think by doing peach rather than apple or cinnamon, just makes it a little bit different. And this one we are going to make from scratch rather than from a cake mix, although, you know, I try to do both things. We're going to use our food processor to make the, I'm going to do that first, to make the topping or the streusel. And I always, when I make anything like this, because I do it in the food processor, a lot of the recipes will say, you know, to get either you can use 2 knives, have the butter softened, or you can incorporate it with your hands. You got a food processor. Why not use that? But when you use the food processor, use your butter cold, and that will mix it a little bit better, make it all crumbs rather than a big, rather than having it softened. And if you put it in the food processor with the butter softened, it's going to be more lumpy. Does that make any sense? Probably not. It would mush it rather than mix it into the brown sugar and oats. That makes sense. All right. And I like to just cut it in pieces. We've got a cup of brown sugar. We've got some quick oats, a little bit of cinnamon, and some flour. I think the flour's on the bottom. So we'll go ahead and add that in. We'll have that all done. And you see a nice fine crumbs with this. All the butter's incorporated into this. Every once in a while you may find a big lump of butter, but you can mix that in. Now to this we've got, and this is where you want your butter softened. If you put this in hard in your mixer, it's gonna probably wreck the motor on your mixer. So we've got a cup of softened butter. There we go. There's a cup of sugar. I'm just going to let that cream. To this, we're going to put 3 teaspoons of vanilla, 2 eggs. We've got some sour cream here, 1.25 cups. We already put the cinnamon in. Here's our dry ingredients, our 3 cups of flour, a teaspoon of baking soda, and a teaspoon of baking powder, and a ½ teaspoon of salt. So we've got that all ready to go with this. And then we've got a can of peach pie filling and a can of sliced peaches. I drained the peaches. Okay, let's see. We'll knock this off a little bit. Okay, we'll go ahead and add our vanilla. Okay. I'll put a little drying stuff in here. And this is a kind of a dense cake, so you don't want to mix it up too much. I'll put a little sour cream in there. A little bit more dry stuff. And I'm going to get a piece of foil for our pan. And I like to, now one thing I should tell you, I'm going to do it in this size pan. When I've made this in the past, I've done it in 2 cheesecake pans. What is that called? Springform pans, thank you. went right out of my mind. I've done it in 2 springform pans, and it makes a nice, a little bit prettier presentation than the 9x13, but the 9x13 you can cut in nice squares and put them on a pretty tray. All right, let's get the rest of this in here. Okay. That and the rest of this. Okay. Let's come. Okay. Now I just like to put the foil on here because then you can lift it right out. Okay, that looks good. Lift it right out. You don't have to worry about cutting in your pan, because you know I hate that. Okay. And it kind of saves your pan a little bit from, depending on any kind of leakage, you might just be able to lift the cake right out and put the pan back in the closet. Okay, we'll spray it a little bit. There's our sliced peaches. And this just gives it a little bit more peachy. Which is kind of good if you don't like although the Food Club really has a lot of peaches in it, and not an excess of the syrup. Okay, but this makes it just a little bit peachier. All right, now we're going to take about 2/3 of this. I know it says half. I like to put a little bit more on the bottom. Sometimes the peaches have a tendency to sink to the bottom. I don't want to put there. Okay. I'm just going to spread this out. And I would imagine if you really wanted to do this with some other fruit, you could certainly do that. Maybe blueberry, I think, would be wonderful. With you could just use fresh blueberries instead of the sliced peaches. Use the blueberry pie filling. Okay, that's pretty even. Now we're going to sort of dot this on here. It's not going to completely cover the top, but we've got the streusel for that. Here's our streusel. We're going to just put all the streusel on the top. And we've got a lot of streusel topping. And I like also with this kind of streusel-y thing, or if you're making those any kind of cookie that has a crust like this where you have to incorporate the butter, and to me this is much easier to spread in the bottom of a pan to make it even rather than having the butter softened and have it like a big lump and then you're really spreading it out and it's sticking all over your hands. If you have it like this, you can see how easy it is to spread. You're going to get the same result and it's going to be a whole lot easier. Okay, that's done. We'll get that in the oven maybe.